Hey everybody, Mr. Danahauer here. I'm assuming you're here because you want to learn how to use Onshape. Onshape is a program where we can do CAD, which is computer aided design. It's a process of creating 3D models or sketches of objects that we want to manufacture. And really, CAD is the foundation of manufacturing. So if we want to 3D print something or mill something or even cut something, with a plasma cutter, we can use CAD to create our designs, and then we can manufacture our items. So Onshape is a nice program to use. There's a lot of CAD programs out there, but Onshape is free and for students, and it's online, so you can access all your files and make adjustments anywhere that you have access to Wi-Fi. So we'll go ahead and get started. As you can see, you're going to need to create an account, and if you're a student, you can go up here to create a student account. And it's as easy as taking about 60 seconds to signing up. And so I'm going to go ahead and sign in. Whenever you get in there, and you're going to see all of your files. And actually, if you haven't ever used Onshape, you're not going to see anything. But we have the options over here to create a new folder, a new document, which is basically what we'll make to design things, import files, which we won't really get into right now. And then we can see all of the different projects that we've made here. We can get into those and folders and whatnot. So to get started here, I just want to orient you to using Onshape, some of the features and controls, and then we'll make some simple designs. So we're going to come up here to create document. And as this is opening, we'll just go ahead and title this practice. As this is opening, I want to say, first of all, I am not a CAD expert. I am self-taught. I really enjoy doing it, and anything that I show you, potentially someone else out there would say there's a better way to do that. So I'll just let you know that right off the bat. I know enough to help you get started and get some of the basics down so you can start designing things. But there are a million videos out there that would help you further your skills, and that's really the way I learned, is by sitting down with Onshape open in a video and watching how they do things, and then trying to reproduce those objects myself. All right, so now we're in our first document. That's what it's called. And you can see down here, it's called a Parts Studio. There's also an Assembly tab where we can put parts together. We're not going to mess around with that right now. Up on the top here, we have a menu where we can rename things. We can change our workspace units, and this will be important if you want to CAD in millimeters or feet or inches or whatever you're CADing in. It's important to know what units you're CADing in and stick to those units. However, when we go in and change dimensions of things, we can actually use whatever units we want. Up here, we see our sketch tool, which we're going to use a lot, and then a whole bunch of other options up here for creating our designs, which we'll get into in a minute here. This is sort of our progress tree. All of our different sketches and extrusions and things we do to make our models are going to all show up here on this menu on this side. And at any point, if we need to change something, we can go in and double click on it, open it up, and make adjustments. Okay, so let's do some mouse controls. I will say trying to CAD with a mouse pad is difficult. I cannot stand it, so I would recommend using a wired mouse or wireless mouse, something that you can actually move a little bit more accurately. So first of all, if we use our standard left click and drag, that's going to select things. So I'm just left clicking and dragging. Right click and drag is going to be our rotation tool. So we can rotate around our different axes by right clicking. We can also navigate and look at the different parts of our object by using the cube up here and click on sections that we want to look at or move things around. But it's just as easy typically to move around with the right click and drag. Another useful feature is the zoom. So if you use your scroll in and out, that'll zoom in and out, which is also really handy. All right. Also, there's some shortcut keys that you can use. And one of my favorites is the View Normal To. We can right click and go to View Normal To right here in our menu. But if you want to do that, you can just click the N on the keyboard. So like if I'm kind of oriented funny and I want to see I want that front plane to be facing exactly towards me, like exactly in my eyesight. I can click on that plane and hit N. The letter N as a Nancy on my keyboard, and it's going to orient that plane or that object or sketch, whatever it is, straight on so I can look at it. So I feel like that's a really handy keyboard function. One other one that you might use a lot as you're clicking on things, you might select multiple objects like this. And if you're zoomed in, it's hard to deselect because you can't see what you're doing. So to deselect everything that you have selected, press the space bar. That's what I just did. Space bar will deselect all things that you have selected, and that's really handy. All right, now the principle of 3D modeling in CAD, at least with Onshape and most of the programs here, is that we want to create sketches in 2 dimensions, and then we're going to either extrude those to make them 3 dimensional or remove shapes that we want to take away from that object. So those are sort of the two fundamental things, or three, I guess: sketching 2 dimensional shapes and then extruding them to make them 3D, or removing parts to change our model. And so let's go ahead and get started. You always have to sketch things on a plane. So you can see I have 3 planes here: my top plane, my front plane, and my right plane. Again, I can come over here and deselect all those with the spacebar. And I need to sketch things on some plane or surface. So if I have a 3D model, I can select a surface to sketch on. If I have a plane, I can sketch on that. And planning out how you're going to model things is really important, and I'll get more into that as we get into actual projects. So I'm going to click on my front plane. I'm going to hit N, view normal to, right? And it's going to orient that front plane towards me, and we'll zoom in a little bit. Oh, one more helpful feature. Notice this isn't centered, and it's fine because I can see things, but if I wanted to kind of move that more towards the center of my screen over here, I can hold down the control key on my keyboard. So I'm holding that down, and I right click and drag, and that will recenter things for me. All right. Okay. So we got a few shortcuts down. Let's do a first sketch. So let's say I just want to make a simple box, right? Maybe I'm making a little jewelry box or something like that. So I'm going to first click on my sketch tool, sketch. And now, like I said, I have to sketch somewhere. I can't sketch in the middle of everything. I have to pick a plane or a surface to sketch on. So click on my front plane. And now you can see here in my menu, right? It's come up with this sketch, my first one. It's saying, where do you want to sketch? I clicked on my front plane and it populated that. And now I see all of my tools change. So let's look at a few of these. I have a line tool. I've got a corner rectangle, and I can drop that down and go to a center point rectangle. I have a center point circle and a 3-point circle. I have arcs. I have polygons, splines or curved lines. I have points and text. So the whole bunch of tools up here, and we'll kind of get familiar with these as we go. I want to just make a box, right? So like a rectangular 3-dimensional box here. So I'm going to click on my corner rectangle. Another principle in CAD is that we're typically going to try to make things certain dimensions. So it's important to kind of have a reference on where your 2-dimensional sketches are attached to. I'm going to attach this first sketch to this origin right here, the center. And you can tell that it's going to attach my rectangle there when I draw it, because as I get close and hover over it, it puts this little box, right? My yellow dot and box lights up. So now I'm going to left click, and I don't have to drag. I can just left click and let go. And now I'm going to drag, and you can see it's starting to, I'm zooming out a little bit, okay? And it's starting to drag this. Now again, I'm not centered. I want to center this, so I'm going to hit Control, right click and drag so I can see better. All right, and when I've got this about where I want it, I'm going to click on my left click one more time. that's going to sort of accept this sketch, right? It's going to lay it down and say, all right, that's my sketch. Now, let's say I wanted this to be specific dimensions. So right after I left click to accept my sketch, notice how I have some dimensions here, this one and this one, right? And this length, we'll call it the 66 millimeters. It's highlighted right now because if I go directly to my keyboard and type in a dimension, it will change that for me. And I'll show you how to change that later as well. So let's say I want the length of my box to be exactly 70 millimeters. I'll just type in 70. Now, if I wanted to be different units besides millimeters, I could type that in. I could do inches, but and you can see that options here, so I can use it. But since I'm in millimeters, I don't need to type units. It's going to assume I'm in millimeters. So I type in 70 on my keyboard. I hit enter. And now it's going to dimension that side, the length we called it. And now this dimension on this side, you'll see is 40.46. Let's say I want that to be exactly 40. So right now, because it's highlighted, again, I can go to my keyboard and type in 40 and hit enter. Now you'll notice that my lines here have gone from blue to black. That's because they have been constrained. I have given them exact dimensions, and now that's not going to change unless I go in and specifically change it. That's a very valuable part of CAD is dimensioning things and having your pieces constrained to other parts so that they stay together. And when we make adjustments, things move together. And again, we'll get more into that later. Now let's say um, I accidentally meant for this to be 45. All right, I can come right above this. First, before I do that, before I make changes, I'm going to deselect my corner rectangle tool. So I'm going to click on this again to turn it off, because if I go click again and that was on, it would make another rectangle and it would just keep making rectangles. So I'm going to turn that off. All right, deselect that tool. Now up here, nothing is selected, but I'm still in sketch 1. I can come here to the 40 and notice how it's highlighted. I'm going to double left click, and it opens that dimension up again. Now I can go to my keyboard and type in 45 because that's what I meant for it to be, and hit enter. I can also drag these off to the side so they're not in my way. And that way I'm not actually, having to CAD on top of those. Okay, one more tool we can use. Let's just say that this dimension right here and here was gone, and I don't have my boxes because I'm working on my sketch and I don't have my dimension boxes up here. There's a handy tool up here called the dimension tool. So I can come here to dimension tool and activate that. And I can dimension lots of things with this. So lengths, widths, angles, all kinds of stuff, radius, diameter. And let's say I just want to dimension this side. So I'm going to go and hover over it and click one time, left click one time, and drag off to the side and left click one more time. And now that's open for editing. So let's say, actually I want it to be 40 and I can redimension that side. Okay, same thing down here. Let's say I wanted this to actually be 65. And so I click on this line now, drag down. Oops, I had deactivated it. Okay, dimension tool active. Click on that line with a left mouse click, left mouse click again, and type in 60. And now that is dimensioned how I want it. Okay. Now, we've made a simple two-dimensional sketch. So how do we make it three-dimensional? First, we need to accept that sketch and say, okay, that is done for now. And the way we're going to do that is by this checkbox right here. So I'm going to click that checkbox. And now you can see I have my sketch on the front plane. Again, if it's a little off, I can click on it and hit N on the keyboard, and it's going to face it right towards me like I want it to. And anytime I need to get back into this sketch, if I want to edit it, I can just come up here and left click twice. So double click, and it's going to reopen that sketch so I can do what I need to it. So let's go ahead and accept that sketch and make it three-dimensional. To make it three-dimensional, I'm going to come up here and use what we call the extrude tool. Extrude is just a fancy way to add. It says up here, create, add, subtract from, intersect parts. We're just going to go from 2D to 3D. So click on that tool to activate it. And you'll notice up here we have a whole bunch of tools. For now, we're just going to keep it a solid object, and we're making a new part here. We're not adding because we don't have any parts to add to. We don't have any three-dimensional parts to add to. We'll use this remove tool in a minute. Now it's asking you in this blue box, what do you want to make three-dimensional? What do you want to extrude? I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to click on my box here. And let me reorient this so you can see what's happening. Now we can see it's taken my two-dimensional figure and it has extruded it out this direction, 25 millimeters. It just kind of has a default amount there. Now we can change that by left clicking on this arrow and dragging it. Notice in the menu bar, it's changing that. So I can also change direction by dragging this way. All right. And I can change direction by clicking this arrow and just say opposite direction. So lots of functions up here. There's also a bunch of different kinds, and we'll get to that later. Right now, we're just going to do blind, which means we're going to give it an amount to like a depth here. So let's say I want this to go that direction. Okay. I want my box to extrude up like this, and I want it to be about 30 millimeters. I'm going to type 30 in there and hit enter. Okay. Now, that's all we really need to do for this first basic sketch. And now if I accept this, right, I have created a box like I wanted to. Now, what if I wanted to remove a piece of this? So let's say I want to create a hole that goes through this box for whatever reason. Okay, first, in order to create that hole, we need to create a two-dimensional sketch. So I'm going to come up here to sketch and see it's going to make sketch 2. It's going to ask me which plane or face, right? And I'm going to sketch on the face of this, and it'll tell you here, face of extrude 2. And I want to make a circle. Now I want the circle to be in the middle, so I'm going to show you a quick trick. How do we know it's in the middle? Well, the nice thing about CAD is whenever you hover over points, so I'm going to click my center point circle here, okay? Whenever you hover over like the middle of the line, it's going to activate a little midpoint box. So this is telling you when you see that box, it's saying, oh, you want to be in the middle of this line, right? So I'm activating this midpoint. Now, since I want it to be in the exact center of this, I can also come over to this line and do the same thing. And now that I've done that with both of those edges, I've activated both midpoints. So because I have both of those midpoints of the length and the width of this box highlighted, and I've got my dotted lines, as soon as I click on that, okay, I left click, and it's activating and it's putting the center of that circle in the exact middle. So you can see that because this is a center point circle, it's going to fix that point, and I've already clicked and let go, and I'm just dragging and it makes my circle. When I'm ready to accept that circle, I can left click one more time. And again, I can dimension this. So let's say I want that hole to be exactly 10 millimeters. I'm just going to type in 10, and it's going to adjust that, and it's black now because it's constrained. So it has a dimension, and that dimension can't change unless we go in and change it. Now that's all I need to do. I've got my two-dimensional sketch. I'll accept that. Let's go in here to extrude. That's how we're going to make our hole. Extrude is for adding and removing. And there's a whole bunch of other tools we can use for that as well. But to make a hole, I'm going to hit extrude. Instead of new or add, I'm going to click remove. And then I'm going to do a blind here, and it's asking which face do I want to extrude. So I'm going to come in and click on this circle. Be careful, because if you click close, you're going to get a bunch of stuff activated. So you really want to make sure you look for that yellow line. Is that the thing that I want to make my hole in? Yes. If I'm over here, now it's looking at a lot more stuff. So I want to be on that particular piece, left click. All right. Now automatically you can see it's already starting to create a hole. The hole doesn't go all the way through my part though. It's going 25 millimeters through the part. So if I wanted to go all the way through, I could drag this all the way through like that. See, we've made a hole. Or I could come in here to the depth and give it an exact depth. Another tool I could use instead of doing blind where we have a measurement or a drag is we go through all. Okay, and that's going to go through every part that's on your sketch. Or we could do up to next, which would just go up to the next face that it reaches. So any of those would work for this, all right? Again, now I would recommend that as you're working through this and you're new, that you use this a lot, merge with all. Merge with all is going to make sure that our parts are all one part instead of making multiple parts. And you can see your parts down here. Okay, if you end up with 2 or 3 parts and you only want to have one, that can be a problem. Merge with all can help you with that. And we'll see that more as we move forward. So I'm going to accept this extrude now, and you can see I have my box with my hole. Okay. Okay, so really basics here. We learned a little bit of orientation, just a few of the tools, sketching, removing, and extruding, and how to sketch onto planes with our two-dimensional figures. In our next video, we'll get a little bit more in depth with some more tools. Thanks for watching.